Perfect. We are ready. We are live in our Open Innovation Thursday chapter of this week. Happy Open Innovation Thursday, everyone. We are now in our 11th edition of this 15-minute bite-sized weekly doses of open innovation. And well, you all know now that we have here our guest that today is a very special day. But just let me do like the formalities. My name is Marisol Menendez. I'm an open innovation enthusiast. I consider myself a little bit a freaking geek of the open innovation dynamic, practitioner, and a little bit of a fangirl. So today I'm also like in the fangirl mood because today we have no other than Henry Chesbrough, father of open innovation. Henry, welcome. Welcome to Open Innovation Thursday. How are you?
Oh, Marisol, thank you so much. And what a pleasure to be with you a second time for our 15-minute Open Innovation Thursdays.
This is amazing. No, it's the second time, but we met, I think, almost 9 weeks ago. So it's only like a memory, and we need to reignite those memories. So it's a very nice opportunity to be chatting with you today. And I always like also to do the formalities as I was saying before. And I always like to ask our guests to introduce themselves for those who are tuning in for the first time. So, Henry, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, and I will try to keep it short. My name's Henry Chesbrough. I am the founding faculty director of the Garwood Center for Corporate Innovation at UC Berkeley, and I'm the Mare Technomont Professor of Open Innovation and Sustainability at Lewis University in Rome. As Marisol said, I'm best known as the father of open innovation, and I'm been very excited to see how open innovation continues to flourish.
It's every day it's growing very organically. I think in a very open innovation mood. No, the practice of open innovation, I think, lives to its own very definition. So it's very, very nice. I've known you, I think, for maybe 10 years, I think, maybe.
I think that's right, yeah.
And we met in the very context of the topic of today's chapter, you know? So for me, today is very special for many things. Today we are talking about chapter number 10, which is
Chapter 10 in this book.
Exactly. It's a heavy book, heavy with knowledge. We have there, it's an amazing, I think it's so beautiful, by the way. And this, we spoke already at the very beginning with Agnieszka, with you, with Joe West, with Bim Van Haverbeke. You all four are the editors of this body of knowledge that encompasses more than 120 different authors, no, in 57 chapters. It's a very comprehensive reflection on the open innovation knowledge, not nowadays. And we also said that this is more a Bible than a novel, no? Something that you could just read, no, as you need, and not to read from beginning to end, no? So for today's piece of knowledge, we are talking about open innovation in large companies, large enterprises. Is that right?
This is chapter 10, Open Innovation in Large Companies.
And that's it. So, well, as I was saying, we met in the context of open innovation in BBVA when we were trying to learn how to do that. And I liked a lot that you, in the excerpt or the abstract of the chapter, it says that open innovation began in large companies, no, large enterprises. So in a way, we are also coming back to the origin of open innovation. By the way, last year we celebrated 20 years since the first edition of the book. But having all this as a knowledge, this is where open innovation began. we keep evolving the knowledge in open innovation. What was the intention of adding this chapter, and what you wanted to talk about?
Well, I really agree with you that chapter 10 takes us back to the roots of what became the original book, Open Innovation. That was built on a series of case studies of companies, mostly in the high-tech sector, mostly in California and the North America. And it showed in some detail how different companies were approaching the task of industrial innovation and doing so in ways that were very different from the prevailing ideas of an Alfred Chandler or a Michael Porter, who were all talking about doing everything yourself in your own organization. And when we look across these different companies, they were all doing things in a more open, more collaborative way and getting good results. So that was what became the beginning of this idea of open innovation. Since then, it's been more than 20 years now, and open innovation has spread geographically to most every continent in the world. It's spread to many different industries. But in chapter 10, we can actually revisit some of where it began.
And this is amazing because even nowadays, 20 years later, many companies in different sectors are beginning their journey in open innovation, collaboration. We also have spoken in many different conversations that we've had that collaboration at the end is something that needs to be done nowadays to address the grand challenges, and many of the challenges that we have nowadays as organizations are even maybe that we have sectors that are more naturally inclined to do collaboration, like, for example, finance world, like me, we began 10 years ago, but nowadays there are many large organizations beginning in more traditional sectors, beginning to think about collaboration, and the question remains, what is open innovation for a large corporation? No, what does this mean? What does this entail? And so you also address this in the chapter, but then what is the chapter about? What do you talk about?
One of the things we see when we look at open innovation in large organizations is we see not just a single practice of open innovation, we actually see a system of many practices connected together. When you were at BBVA, you led the activities in open talent, but BBVA was doing many other things as well as open talent. And this was true of pretty much all large companies, that they don't just do one open innovation activity, they do many. And then there's an interesting question of not only about the individual things that they're doing, but then how do they connect together? And how do they inform your strategy? How do they inform the trajectory of your own development and improvement over time? How can you do more with your customers using these techniques? So there's one example in the chapter from Germany, Bayer, in the life sciences, that their section is really about the many different things that they're doing, from very transactional case-by-case interactions to very deeply co-located, co-laboratory, shared laboratory environments where there are really ongoing deep relationships that sustain over time. And Bayer has practices aimed at each of these along that continuum. So it isn't just this or that, it's a way of thinking and a series of practices that grow out of that way of thinking.
This is very interesting because, well, in my own practice and the work, we say that open innovation is not uniform within organizations, no? It also, you have initiatives that are more mature, areas that they don't need to be open, others that need to be very open and collaborative, no? How do we coexist with all these different phases within the organization is also an art per se, no? And how do you see the evolution of this way of working within corporations or big, large enterprises in these 20 years, Henry? What have we learned?
Well, I think we have learned a lot. One thing we've learned is that not everything works. And so there are some practices that are less practiced now or even abandoned. There are even companies that have essentially walked away from open innovation, even if others, sometimes in their same industry, are actually beginning their open innovation journeys. So it does vary, as you were saying before. But if we step away from that and step back a little, one thing we've learned is that the locus of innovation has shifted from inside the corporate research laboratory out to a more distributed environment of university research, academic research centers, research institutes, startups. All of these players are now part of the innovation landscape in a way that's different than it was 20 or 30 years ago. So that's one thing we've learned. A second thing we've learned is that although we talk about innovation and technology, the business model is also critically important to be able to commercialize the ideas and the knowledge that you either develop yourself or discover and connect to from outside. It's the business model that links and connects those things into a logic that allows you to both create value and then capture a piece of that value for yourself. So that's a second thing that we've learned.
Regarding that, I wanted to ask you a question. This wasn't prepared, but I've been discussing about this so much recently and I know many people have this question. So when we are talking about innovation, we are talking about the long term, but connecting this to the business model also takes us to the short term, no? So I have a friend and we always joke that he says, open innovation is EBITDA, Marisol, EBITDA. We want to know results. No? And yeah, we say, well, yes, but we also need to create the future. And my friend will know who he is. No? Still, I think when we say that within organizations, open innovation is not uniform, also implies the scope. Some things need to work in the short term and some things in the long term. But my question is, how do we match how we evaluate the success of open innovation and innovation in general with these business models and the future growth of the company, no?
So this actually would be a third thing that I have personally learned since writing the book more than 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I thought if I can describe this new model of innovation and give several examples and explain in detail how they work, then organizations will be able to read this and do it for themselves. That was naive because of the question you're making right now. Companies need some sense of proof early on that this is going to work for us in our industry. Yes, you can tell me about this other company in this other situation, and maybe in 5 years, that might be beautiful. But what about between now and the next 5 years? And this means that open innovation is an example of organizational change. And any organizational change can be challenging and difficult and needs demonstrations and proof points along the way. I think of them as early wins. So it isn't the whole totality of what you can do, but it's enough of a tangible demonstration that it gives you permission to keep going. And it gives the organization enough evidence that they too can support and keep nurturing it rather than having the corporate immune system look for ways to attack and shut it down. So this is something that I think I've learned a great deal more about in the last 20 years is how can organizations navigate this substantial organizational change? Because when you do start talking about not just innovation, but the business model, you're now touching many different parts of the organization that somehow all have to align on not just what we're doing now, but what we're going to do. in the future, that's challenging.
This is amazing. And you made me think. I think I will try to stop thinking about new questions. I will finish with this one just before closing up. But for an big, large enterprise who is beginning now their process of open innovation, they have the intention to begin. I've heard people say, we already adapt ourselves. We already collaborate with partners to answer to some things. How is this different from open innovation? And I think I remember that was one of the basic questions we had at the beginning. And I would like to know your thoughts about this.
Yes, I'm going to answer at two levels. One is practices, and the other is a mindset. Individual practices come and go, and companies can be using them, and they may or may not connect that practice to some larger idea that we call open innovation. And if it works, good. The question is, does it work or not? Not is it open innovation or not? But because the practices do come and go, the more enduring concept that I think will be helpful for companies and anyone reading chapter 10, and this is actually where I close the chapter, is I separate the beliefs and the mindset of open innovation from the individual practices that flow out of that mindset. So there are 6 of them, and I won't list them all, but I'll give you a couple as an example. One is this idea that most of the smart people work somewhere else. This means that there is a lot of useful information, most of which is not already known to you. But once you accept that it's out there, your smart people can take it upon themselves to find ways to recognize, connect, and leverage that smart information. And there are many practices one might follow to do that, but they're animated by the mindset that, yes, there is a lot of useful information out there. We don't have to invent it all ourselves. So that's a mindset that can give rise to several different practices. A second one was what we were just talking about with the business model. We used to think whoever has the best technology first wins. And the open innovation mindset is whoever builds the best business model is going to win. So it's an old example, but Google was something like the 18th search engine out there for the internet. But it's the one that has survived. And yes, it's got good technology, but what really has driven its survival is the business model around advertising that they built so successfully from that. So again, there are many practices you might follow if you realize that it's not just about the technology, it's about the business model too. But by paying attention to the mindset, you can not only benchmark what companies are currently doing, you can think more creatively about what might we do that aligns with this new mindset. So that's how I close the chapter, is to say, by all means, study the practices of what companies are doing, but think also about the underlying mindset and then consider what more you might do.
This is amazing, Henry, and also that we connected to the closure of the chapter. I don't know if you have a call to action to academics, practitioners, researchers. What do we still need to work around, or any final advice?
Yes, I would say, and you are part of this, Marisol, that one of the things that has really helped open innovation flourish is that we have done good academic research, but we have also paid close attention to what companies are doing as well, theory and practice. And by joining those two together, by engaging across academia and industry, both can learn from the other. This, I think, is going to keep us going for a long time to come. If we can sustain that engagement, then I think we've got something special.
We will, and we keep working with that. For example, with the World Open Innovation Conference, this year in San Francisco in November, but many other opportunities and different conversation ways that we are doing to close that gap. For example, this conversation between a practitioner and the father of open innovation. So this is amazing, Henry. I wanted to see, I think I have many of your books here. This the first books, you know, I have my blurring effect, but you can see open innovation running around. We have a lot of knowledge and lots of research and work still to do. Thank you very much for your time, Henry. Thank you for adding chapter 10 to the list. And thank you for giving us these 15 minutes today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marisol.
And see you maybe soon or in a future week. Let's see.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for connecting, and see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.